All right, so good morning again to everybody who is participating. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your attendance. I hope that this webinar will be very useful and that we will get a lot of proposals. Um, First, a few technicalities before we start. I'd like to let you know that this session is going to be recorded. For that reason, we will mute your cameras and your mics. If you have questions, you can please write them in the chat. We are going to review them and respond, and you can see the responses in our Q&A section on the web page. I'm going to show you where exactly they will be. So we're not going to take questions today. We'd like to think them over and respond individually to each one of your questions. Um, with this said, I'm going to start now. And just to let you know how the presentation will go, it will be divided in a few sections. The first one is briefly describing the call for proposals and what we expect from you in general. Then we'll go to the application process itself. I'm going to talk about the documents you need to submit. Also, we'll pay attention to the budget and the other documents, of course. And then I will lead you through the electronic proposal submission system where you will be actually submitting the proposals. We'll go through the registration process and the other technicalities. So this is going to be all for today. And we start with the first slide. So you probably already know the Media Resilience Project is led by the Open Society Institute in Sofia and is implemented in cooperation with the European Citizen Action Service and the Pro Media. It is co-funded through the Creative Europe program of the EU. It will last for 2 years, but your projects will be up to 12 months. Most generally, the goal of the program is to strengthen a free, diverse, and pluralistic news media and to promote quality journalism with an emphasis on quality media outreach to vulnerable groups which are susceptible to disinformation. What are the objectives of this call specifically? I would like to tell you that all of this information that is here in the presentation is also available in the application guidelines. I'm going to show you where you can find them, but the presentation is a nutshell of the guidelines. So don't worry if you don't catch something. You can still see that in the application guidelines and in the presentation, which will be published on our website along with a recording of the session. So the objective generally are counteracting the populism and propaganda, increasing media's financial resilience, enhancing the outreach to vulnerable groups, fostering the development of quality news journalism, and addressing emerging technological challenges. What are the basic facts of the call for proposals? You can see the total amount for the grants that we have available. Of that amount, 10% will be dedicated to investigative journalism and at least 30% to local, regional, and community media. The maximum grant per initiative is up to 60,000 euros. So we expect to allocate around 30 months financial support for around 30 proposals, meaning 5 per country in the best case scenario. As I said, the initiatives will be lasting up to 12 months and they have to be completed by May 31st, 26. An important question, who are the eligible candidates? And I have to say that I'll talk generally here about the eligibility, but I know that there are individual cases and there'll be probably questions, as we already had some questions on that, on specific cases of media outlets. But most generally, we look for independent news media from Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, Hungary, and Slovenia that are legally registered. They should be legal entities, but we could also support companies and NGOs. In the case of NGOs, we try to support those, we will support those who are producing news, who are producing journalism, rather than certain analysis or research. So they function and operate as media outlets. Also, we look for news media that will demonstrate that they're committed to editorial independence from governments, from political parties, corporations, and from the outlets, administrative, financial, and commercial management. We would look also at media that is media outlets that are adhering to principles of democracy and EU values, including also human rights. Media that does not spread disinformation or use hate speech or discriminate against marginalized communities. In the documents I'll show you later, you will have to submit a declaration confirming that you meet this eligibility criteria. This is a brief timeline of the call. So what is important is the writing in red. The deadline for submitting your proposals is 5 o'clock Eastern European time. This applies for the countries like Bulgaria and Greece. The other three countries, Croatia, Hungary, and Slovenia, are in the Central European time zone. So for them, it will be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Please be careful with the timing. If you don't submit the proposal by this time, you will be cut off from the system. In the second half of April, we'll start with the verification of administrative compliance of projects. After the administrative compliance, we'll move into evaluation of and selection of the proposals. And in June, July, we plan to sign the grant agreements and start implementation. What are the expected outcomes? We have grouped them in 3 parts. They're very broad, but they will be clearer once we talk about activities in a minute. So the first outcome is increased resilience, pluralism, and editorial independence of news media, including here local, regional, and community media and investigative journalism. The second outcome is improved uptake on new technology, but in as much as they contribute to improving the quality of media and the pluralism and diverse media landscape. The third outcome relates to the reaching out to vulnerable groups which are susceptible to disinformation at community, local, and regional levels. Here I grouped possible activities under these outcomes. All of them can be seen in the application guidelines. You have a lot more information in the guidelines. These are just the headings of possible activities that you can focus on, having in mind the outcomes that you want to have. So these are just the headings, and they relate to editorial production, content, format, coverage, revenue generation models, improving distribution and dissemination of news, outreach to vulnerable groups and community building strategies, development and adaptation of new technologies, training on the above topics, and any other activities you may see suitable for your projects. In the guidelines, you can see in detail under each one of these headings proposed activities that you can focus on. Of course, these are just proposed. You can create your own as long as they fit with the goals and objectives of the call. Now we move on to the application process. I'm going to be a little bit more specific, and we will start, first of all, Okay. So here is our website. The Media Resilience page is located on the website of the Open Society Institute Sofia. You can see here the logo, Media Resilience. That's how you will recognize the program. Once you click there, you will see the you will see on the right side 2 columns, and here in the guidelines and application forms, you have all the information that you need for submitting the proposal. And you can find here the application guidelines, the application forms, and later on we'll have the grant agreements here. You can see the Q&A section that you need to check, and contacts and complaints. So basically, before you start doing anything and filling in any forms, please go through the application guidelines, which you can find here. Read them carefully. and try to consider how you match, how you fit into the requirements. Okay. Uh, hmm. Sorry, I cannot go back to. Sorry, I'm trying to go back to the. All right. Going back to the slides. Okay, so here are the application documents that you need to submit to us. This is the application form. I will go in greater detail through the form to just give you some hints. You need to fill in a detailed budget, which has to be submitted in an Excel file. Also, a proposal timeline. And a declaration of eligibility confirming the content and the absence of double funding. Also, here is the editorial independence. We'll have a look at this. You need to submit to us a CV of a project manager or a coordinator of the program. These are all required documents. You can see the red star here, which means that the document is required. What may not be required is the CV of other key team members. And also what is required is an editorial charter or another relevant document that outlines your organization's commitment to editorial independence. Okay, I will show you now where to find the forms. So in that section, again, on the right side, you can click on forms and this window will appear. So you can see here, first of all, instructions for completing and submitting the proposals. In the EPSS, this stands for Electronic Proposal Submission System. We'll go back to this. Here you have very detailed instructions on how to use the electronic system. But the documents themselves start from sample one. You have here the application budget, the proposal timeline, the declaration, and the proposal application template. What you need to do first, once you go through the application guidelines, is download the application budget, the timeline, and the declaration, download from this site, and fill it in as to the best of your abilities. And later on, you're going to upload these forms to the application form, which we'll address in a minute. So this is in that window. We'll go back to the slides. Okay, so I talk briefly about the application form to give you an idea generally of what this is about, and then we will look in greater detail in the electronic system at the application form. The key components of the application form are the following. They are divided into bigger parts. The first one is general information about the proposal, information about the applicants. Here we try to understand more about your organization as a media outlet. I need to stress that it is not only the proposal and the quality of the proposal and the content that we will evaluate, but it is very important, equally important for you to present to us your media outlet in terms of its quality news, in terms of its editorial independence, and a few other things that we'll go through. So you get equal number of points for both the content of the proposal and the information about your media. Then the next section is description and justification of the proposal. Here is actually where we talk about activities, results, impact, sustainability, risks, and so on. We'll go through that. We ask you to provide information about the capacity of your organization to implement this proposal. This means basically we look at your staff, the technology you use, your experience, your financial stability, and revenues. And the last part is the documents, which I already showed you. You'll see them again. So when I said we would like to know more about your media outlet, here are the key points that we'd like you to focus on. Of course, very important is the editorial independence and how you prove that. What is the level of professionalism and the quality of news you do? Your governance structure, here we look more at transparency and accountability. The ways you focus on democratic values, what is your mission and role? Whether you have past similar experience with some examples, maybe if this is applicable, of similar projects. What is your staff, its availability, the experience, the quality of the people you work with, your financial stability, and your technological capacities. And that slide, as well as the next one, relate more to the activities and results. So basically, once you select, you have to select, I will demonstrate in the application form, but generally you have to select one of the three outcomes I was outlining before that you would like to focus on. Basically, this is your goal. So you can select one outcome, you can select two or all three of them. Just be careful if you select more than one outcomes, you need to find the connection between them and you need to justify why you selected more than one outcomes. Then you need to define your needs and to justify how your proposal aligns with the call. It is very much recommended to try to use data or specific context to justify the needs. When it comes to activities, basically you need to describe very clearly and actually break into phases or parts the activities that you plan to have and justify, of course, why you want to do them. You have to describe the target groups, how you reach to them and engage them. How will you carry your activity, the resources and methods you will be using, how you plan the services you need and the equipment. And very important is to clearly state the results that you plan to achieve. I have to stop here and stress on something. We really want to see very clearly defined activities and even more clearly defined results that you expect, because actually the financial support that you will be getting will be based on the way you describe the activities and the way you actually reach your results. Results need to be measurable, they need to be verifiable, and they need to be presented as measurable deliverables. In the form I will show you, you can list up to 5 activities. You can add more sections to if you need for more activities, but there will be up to 5. You can, of course, group them into similar activities, you can group them. I gave here an example. If you try to develop a web portal, you have to define your target group. You can break the actions into training, launch, and maintenance of the portal. You need to also present indicators and you need to clarify the result. I'll show you again on the application form itself. So this is again, as far as the project activities and the project itself go. In addition to the activities and results, you need to tell us what is the impact that you expect, which means basically the bigger effect, the larger change that you aim at. The sustainability of the project, which is the life of the project beyond the results of the project cycle. We also want you to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, mainly gender equality and non-discrimination. It is important to clarify the risks that you envision in your proposal, in your project. You need to specify the risk, the level of that risk, whether it's low, medium, or high, and try to think of mitigation measures that you can use. And finally, we want to ask you to focus on the publicity, which means basically how you inform the public about your project and what kind of channels and messaging you will be using. Now we come to the financial support section. which is very important. I have here my colleague, Veliko, who is our financial director and financial manager of the project. He will be supporting me if I am wrong with something or not clear. So we already said the financial support for each initiative is up to 60,000 euros. The budget template, I show you where you can find it. Please note that you need to use an Excel file, otherwise you will not be able to upload it. And please fill in first the budget template once you download it. In case, once you fill it in, please make sure that you transfer the same total amount in the budget template into the application form. If there's a difference in the numbers, we will be using the budget template. So please make sure that you have the same number as a total budget in both spaces. You need to, we don't ask for any co-funding in this case, such as voluntary work or anything else. The OSI is providing the 10% of the co-financing. The budget must comply with the limits and eligibility of activities and costs set in the guidelines, and you need to justify every requested amount of support per activities. The most important part is this first one, which is financial support is provided using a simplified cost option for reporting called lump sum. Okay. So basically it means that you provide your estimated budget costs. We review your proposal, and based on the specifics of the proposal, based on the timeline and the risk that we define for each proposal, we will fix the amounts that you will be getting from us as financial support.
Activities.
By activity. This is a little bit premature. You don't need to worry about this. You need to just fill in the estimated costs and in a way that I will demonstrate in a minute. Okay, so we go into the budget itself. This is the template for the budget. You need to start with filling in the basics here, the proposal name, the applicant, the duration in months, the name in English and your native language. The second field, which starts with total, you don't worry about because it will be automatically filled once you fill in the next field. Just to let you know that in the second field, you will have your expenses organized by direct costs, indirect costs, and then total amount, total budget. I'll explain how we look at direct and indirect costs. But most important is this part of the budget that you need to actually fill in. So you basically fill in the expenses you envision by activity, and these need to correspond to your activities in the application form. Here you can have budget lines from 1 to 5, because we have 5 activities. You fill in 5 activities. If you have more than that, or you can have less, but if you want to have more, you can group similar activities into one of these 5 activities. The next budget line is to define the budget category. And here we have, okay, so here I'll explain in the next, maybe I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so these are the budget categories. We have direct costs. The direct costs relate to personnel costs. This is cost for employees. The way you budget the costs for employees, they should be proportionate, a proportionate share of wages, social and health insurance for staff involved in initiatives corresponding to the time planned for activities. So in other words, the budgeting should be by either month, day, or hour, depending on the activity. And the rates also by month, day, or hour are in accordance with the employment contract of the regular employees or the employer's usual practice. Then we also have cost for natural persons. people who are engaged under a direct contract in the project. They are assigned to the action under conditions similar to those of staff employees. So this is the first direct cost, personnel cost. The other one cost is the cost for services and purchase of materials and equipment. This basically relates to anything material or equipment you buy, software, any other materials, and services, which means, for example, you can hire consultants to do certain services. And then the third one is travel expenses. The travel expenses are related here to the team members who travel and also to reimbursement for participants in different events. Reimbursement means daily rates and accommodation. So travel, daily rates, and accommodation go under travel expenses. Okay, let me explain now that we started with the costs. Travel expenses are defined as unit costs, and here are two tables that are fixed costs for travel, accommodation, and subsistence. These are not ours, these are EU-based, and you need to use these rates. For each country, there's a different rate for subsistence, for accommodation, and for travel. So in other words, the rates for travel are not based on actual real needs, but they're based on certain unified fixed amounts. They're called unit costs that are decided for each of the countries. For travel, there's a special point here that if you travel up to 399 kilometers, you can use the rates in the first table. And if the travel goes above 400 kilometers, you can use the second table. So the unit costs need to be used, not the realistic costs when it comes to travel. As we talk now about travel, I'll go back to the budget, but first I need to explain the different categories and then we'll go back to the template of the budget. As we talk about travel, we ask you to kindly budget in your budget costs for one representative from each of these of your outlets for two events that we will support as under our project, not under this call, but we need to budget, we are requested to budget for one summer academy in Sozopol, Bulgaria in 25, for travel, accommodation, and per diem. Just follow this table. And for one other workshop, which will take place in Brussels in 26, also for travel, two-day accommodation, and per diems. The other costs that we are talking about here are indirect costs. These costs, basically, you don't need to worry. You don't need to fill them in the budget template. They are calculated automatically by the system. And they are costs that relate to your administrative labor, to office rent, to any communication and stationery costs, and to accounting, for example. These costs are fixed at 7% of the direct costs, and they will be automatically calculated in the budget. So let's go back to the budget. Budget template. So once you fill in your activities, you need to point here what budget category you are using for each one of the activities or the phases of the activity. And you have an option, you have a selection, you have to select here from all of these categories that are mentioned. You need to provide the unit by which you're measuring the cost. Can be month, a day, hour, travel. You need to provide the number of units, the amount per unit in euro, the total euro amount, and very important to explain how you justify this cost. As I said, that's all you need to fill in. You don't need to fill in the indirect costs, but they will appear once there's a calculation of your direct costs. Your indirect costs will appear automatically in the table above, in the second table. This yellow field here is for just checking up whether your calculation is right. And when you are filling the activities and the budget categories and everything down there, your calculations will first come here, so you can see if the calculation is correct. Okay, so what are ineligible costs? These are, as you can see, costs covered by other funding sources, costs for period outside of the planned implementation, either before or after the project completes, voluntary labor and other types of non-financial contributions. You cannot provide aid to third parties. Ineligible costs are provisions for losses and potential future liabilities, the exchange and differences in bank charges, and profit cannot be calculated as an expense. Here are some examples of budgets, which I think will be very useful. The first one is a table filled in to demonstrate how you can divide the activity by phase. Here we've picked up one activity, which is development, launch, and continuous update of a web portal. This activity is broken down into software, tools, training, and launch and continuous update of the web portal. Please note how each one of these phases is described in greater detail. It's broken down into specific stages or steps, and then how the budget categories are listed here according to each one of these sub-activities. So you can use that as an example to how to fill in, how to break the activity into phases and how to use the budget categories. The next budget template, budget which is filled in for you, is actually to demonstrate the use of budget categories and the unit costs. This is basically a budget for events. Here we have broken the activities into rental, venue rental, equipment, participant travel costs, per diems, accommodation, materials, the project coordinator, moderator fee, and so on. Anything you can think of when you do an event. But what is important is to check how each one of these estimated expenses, how it is categorized, what exactly category we can use here. Please note also that participant travel costs, per diems, and accommodation are all averaged fixed unit costs, whereas the other costs are costs that you need to provide based on real expenses, real needs. And here also you can see the explanatory notes, the justification of the expenses. We put a very short description. You may require to use some more detailed description depending on the activities and the sub phases. Okay, so there's a little bit information about the lump sum contribution. That is not important really at this stage, but just for your information. So basically, once you estimate your expenses in the budget format, we will review it. We will decide how we can break down the costs by activity and what lump sum amount we can attach to the group of activities and how this will be actually how you will get that kind of support. What is really important to say is that you will not report to us based on actual expenditure. We do not require to see that, but you will report to us by activities. To what extent they were completed, how was the quality achieved, what were the results, and how are they measurable as deliverables. So this is what we will request when it comes to reporting. And I cannot give you a scheme exactly at this time because we don't know the individual proposals, but be sure that we will look individually at everyone and we will negotiate with you and discuss when we start talking about grant agreements. So also maybe as information, under this lump sum contribution, the advantages are that we will not reduce your funding because of certain problems to prove actual costs, which is a plus. There's no administrative burden of reporting actual costs. And what is the biggest plus is that the focus here is not using that method, is not on reporting on actual costs, but on reporting on implementation of activities and the achievement of results. So that's the advantages of this method. The lump sum contribution can be reduced in case the costs of activities that were not in case we have activities that were not implemented or completed by the time we have fixed the amount to be financed to you. When the financial corrections are inaccurate or irrelevant implementation of activities are needed. And in case we find out that there is double funding. But this again will be negotiated at a later stage when we are talking about the grant agreements and the implementation of the projects. The next two slides are also, I mentioned already, how you will be reporting and how we will base the determination of the lump sums. But just to let you know that the determination of this lump sum depends on our assessment of the risk assessment of your projects.
Determination of the transfer.
So it will depend. So the determination of the transfer of the money will depend on the basic initial risk assessment. So we define risk as minimal, medium, or high risk. Depending on that, we will propose to you certain payment schemes. It will also depend on what kind of phases, what kind of activities you have, what is the timeline of these activities and the phases. So we can divide the project into certain stages. Here are some schemes for payment. Again, this is a little bit premature, but this is based on risk assessment, and the following schemes can be used. So you can have advance payment with an interim report. You can have an advance payment without an interim report. And if the project is high risk, it may go without advance payment, just interim payments, and then final payments of the remaining funds. But again, this is estimated numbers and percentages. It's just an example to show what kind of payment schemes to beneficiaries can exist. And again, this is all going to be negotiated later. Now we go into the selection process stage, evaluation and selection. Okay, so there are two stages of the evaluation of the proposals that you will submit. The first stage is to go through a administrative eligibility process. The criteria for this administrative eligibility are all in the guidelines. They are very detailed and clear. Once you have this, once your projects go through the administrative check, you will be informed no later than 15 days after the deadline. You will be informed if your project is passing these criteria. And you can actually, if there are some administrative gaps, you can rectify that within 5 working days. But please note that when you do changes to the certain gaps, you cannot change your budget. This is not allowed. And in case your proposal did not pass the admin check, you can request within 5 days a re-examination by sending an email to us and with the subject heading appeal. Once your projects pass the administrative evaluation, the proposal goes to a evaluation of the content of the proposal. Again, there is a very detailed criteria described with all the points you can get in the application guidelines. Generally, the criteria are grouped on the relevance of the proposal, feasibility, sustainability, and expected impact of activities, capacity of the team, capacity and team of the applicant, budget, and whether the media is local, regional, community, or investigative. Now, proposals that do not score more than 30 points or have a score of 0 from both evaluators for any criteria will not be included in the ranking. Who is actually and how is the selection of proposal and the evaluation of proposals done? We have launched a call for external evaluators. So you will have your proposals evaluated by impartial and independent expert evaluators who will be 2 by proposal, and they'll be selected by this competition. In case there's a difference in the score of more than 30% of the highest score, and the highest score exceeds the minimum threshold, which is 30 points, then your proposal will go to arbitration, which means that there will be a third evaluator who will look at your proposal. The final proposal score will be the average of the 2 closest scores of the evaluators. Once the evaluators present to us the ranking of their projects and the points, all the scoring and the proposals will go to the project selection committee, which consists of 5 media experts. The project selection committee will review the rankings and propose a final decision on which initiatives and couple of reserves to be supported. Of course, the project selection committee can propose changes in the ranking, but only with very strict justification why this change will contribute to achievement of objectives, priorities, and indicators. When may financial support not be awarded? When there are irregularities in the submission process, and I mentioned some of them. When we understand that the applicant disrespects EU values, spread disinformation, uses hate speech, or discriminates against marginalized communities. When the content of the proposal, parts of it are found to be identical to other proposals, and there's discrepancy between the proposal and the application guidelines, or when we see that there's suspicion of double funding or of certain activities, not a proposal or certain activities. How will the communication with the applicants go? All the applicants will be informed about the decision of the selection committee, which will be final and not subject to appeal. And then successful applicants will be contacted will submit contract documents by email, but this we will, of course, announce at a later stage. Please check the project webpage, which is here, regularly for information on your results. I'll show you exactly how in the electronic system, how you can do that. We accept questions on the application process by email, which is here with a subject header, media resilience call question, and you have 10 working days to submit your questions. So let me go now to the electronic submission of proposals. We go to the electronic portal. Okay, so I'll share the system. Just a minute. Okay, so you need to open when you go to the Media Resilience webpage, you press the apply button, and you will see this field in front of you. Here you need to register your organization, which means you have to provide the name, the country, the registration number, the official representative of the organization, and the contact person. Please bear in mind that there may be a difference between the official representative of the media and the contact person. It's up to you to decide whether it's going to be the same person or two different persons. And then you have to agree to this disclaimer, which you see. And then once you do this, you will submit. You will send the request. Okay. Now we'll just go to the next slide. Okay, once you submit this request for your organization to be registered in the system, you will receive an email which will provide you with a username and with a link to set up your password. And also this will activate your account. Okay, so let's pretend that I'm now in your shoes and I'm applying to submit a proposal. So this is what you will see after you register your organization. You can log in with your username and your password. We click on login and you receive the information that you have already registered. Now you need to continue with the submission of the documents and the application form. So what you do is you press the apply button. At the bottom, you will see the name of the call and you will see the application form. Okay, so you have to fill in this application form online. You can also, if you wish, fill it somewhere separately and then copy paste it. So what are the specifics here in this application form? So first of all, you start with some basic information about the proposal, the name of the proposal, the duration, the place of activities, the total funding requested. Please be careful to submit the same number that you put in the budget template. Anytime you wish to edit, you can press this button. There'll be a window open. You can do your edits, and then you need to save the edits. You will see a button at the bottom to save the edits that you did. In general, you can fill the form in phases. It doesn't have to be filled in all at once. Anytime you want to stop filling in, you can press the edit button and you will see the save button. When you save the application, next time you can go to it again from pressing this entries button. It will be saved here, and from here you can continue with the application format. So here, please note that there's official address of the organization that you can use and then address for correspondence. If it's different, they may be different, so up to you to decide. Then you fill in the name of the official representative of the organization and the contact person. Please make sure that you submit the email of the contact person that will be checked regularly, because we will be sending information through the system. So our coordination with you will be through the system, and we'll be sending emails to that contact person that you register here. Please make sure that this will be available for checking regularly. Then we come to a summary of the proposal. That section is usually filled in at the very end. It is better to go through the details first of the application, and then you come back and you provide a summary, which is basically saying what is the main goal, what is the main outcome, and what are the specific results that you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve them, how you plan to achieve them. The next section is about your organization as a news media outlet. That is important, and as I said, it gives you points almost equal to the content of the proposal. So in that section, you need to describe the type of media that you're working in. Your organization, whether it's local or regional or community or national, what is your audience, what is your annual budget, and your team. Please note that under each section, we say you can use up to 2,000 or 3,000 characters, and it is calculated with spaces. So when you fill in this each section, basically you will be cut off automatically if you exceed the number of these characters. But just think in advance how you will fit into the characters that we require. You need to tell us about your organization's mission and core values. Of course, they are aligned with EU values, with democracy and pluralism. Very important section is about the editorial independence and your professional standards. You can tell us, first what kind of mechanisms you use to ensure editorial independence, and describe maybe any policies or practices or mechanisms that you have regarding this. But also, we request that you submit an editorial charter or code of conduct or another relevant document to prove actually that you are adhering, committing to editorial independence. We want to see also how you can demonstrate that you provide good quality journalism. How do you ensure that? Describe any practices, standards, or maybe trainings, professional trainings to maintain high journalistic standards. We'd like to also look at your governance structure, and basically that completes this section. The experience and examples of work, you can provide up to 3 concrete examples to basically showcase how you work, how you contribute to democracy, pluralism, social inclusion. You can select some of these values or standards to show to us that you have good quality news. You can also provide links to some cases if you wish to. It will be good to follow up on the links. And how your organization prioritizes investigative journalism if your organization is investigative journalism. Now we come to the section where you need to actually specify the activities of this proposal. First of all, you need to select one of these 3 outcomes, which I mentioned at the very beginning. You select either 1 or 2 or 3 of them, and you justify why you want to select these. You explain how you align your proposal with the goals of the project and the objectives of the call. Then you need to go through, present a needs assessment of the real needs, of the gaps or challenges that you see that you want to address. And as I mentioned, please use data, surveys, or very specific context to prove your points. Now here we come to activities. You can list up to 5 activities. This is corresponding also to the budget, where you could list up to 5 activities. You can list only 1 if you wish, or 2, or more than 5. I will show you at the end of this section how you can replicate the field if you want to add more activities, because in this form we only have the form for 1 activity. But what do we need to see as activities? So you need to really clearly describe the activity, specify the target group, specify the methods and resources that you will use, how you plan to procure services and equipment, and describe the services that you will be using. So as I said, these activities need to be very clearly defined step by step or phase by phase, so that it is possible to after that pinpoint a result that you want to achieve, and that this result should be a deliverable that is measurable. Okay, so Then we go to results, which, as I said, is really important for this kind of financial support. So you have to tell us what is the expected result, when you expect it, and this might be a little bit of a challenge, but you have to think of how you will actually measure that result. You have to provide an indicator. It can be a number or a scale. You have to attach a value to that indicator. For example, you're organizing an event. The indicator, the unit of measurement can be the number of people that attend the event. But the value of the indicator will be, let's say, 500 people attended the event. It's easier to give numbers. It can be also some scale. Then you have to provide us with a source of verification. In other words, where can we see this result demonstrated? It can be, depends on the activity, it can be a website, it can be a report, it can be an event that was going on, but it needs to be, you need to think of an indicator that is measurable, a result that is measurable. Then we have listed here 3 results. You can have only one, doesn't have to be 3. It's up to you, and it's the same information is repeated here. Now you see here at the bottom, repeat section. If I press it, you will have the same window repeated again, depending on the number of activities you want to list. And you're free you're free to select, one second. Okay, you're free to select as many activities as you wish. Then we come to a few fields that relate to the activities and the results. They are a little bit more strategic. You have to let us know what will be the expected impact of all the activities and the results that you have, what significant and lasting changes you want to achieve. Sustainability relates to the life of the results and the impact beyond your proposal. Diversity, equity, inclusion, we here want to see more about gender equality and non-discrimination. You can also describe practices, policies that you have and measures to support these efforts. It will be good to have some real policies that you may have in your organization dedicated to this. The next one is risk management. As I already mentioned above, please define the risks. And then once you define the risks, you can try to define the level of the risk, where it's low, medium, or high. And you can specify what kind of measures you will use to mitigate that risk. Publicity measures referred mainly to how you will make known about your project, about your results, and how you will outreach to your audiences. Okay, so capacity to implement the proposal is the next part of the application form. Here, we'd like to know more about your team capacities to implement this specific project. We start with a field which asks you to provide to tell us about your previous experience with project implementation, whether you had similar experience, whether you implemented any similar projects, when they were implemented, the amount, the value of the funding, and the source of funding. Please note that this field doesn't have a red star, which means that you are not required to present that to us, but you may as well present that if you have such experience. The next field is actually required. We would like to know more about your team capacity to actually implement this project. So basically, we want to focus on your qualifications of the team members, how you allocate responsibilities between them. Also, we'd like to know more about the project manager, his position in the organization, and relevant experience. Of course, this will all be also in the CV that you will attach. And additionally, you can provide information about other members of the team that will take part in the implementation. And please note that it is mandatory to have at least the CV of the project manager, and additionally, you can submit other CVs of key members. That section on financial stability is not required, but it will good to have it. This is basically to understand your financial stability, revenue streams, whether you use your innovations, what are your technological resources. So it's a little bit more about your capacities as an organization. The final section is the part which asks you to upload documents, which we already discussed. Once you fill the budget, the timeline, and the declaration, and the CVs, you can upload him. You see the button, you can upload these documents, and then you can check the whole application form, check it carefully for all the details, everything that you filled in, and only after that you can press the submit project proposal button. And once you do that, once you do that, you will get, let me go back to the presentation just to follow up on the, okay, here I've also described in the slides the whole process that I showed you now online. We don't need to repeat that. And here are some key steps, stages that you need to know, or you can refer to them from in the slides. Maybe yes, actually, just to note that data in the template cannot be changed after submission. This is something important to remember. Data is modifiable, of course, before submission, and you can even generate a PDF. There's an option there, a button to press where you can have a PDF just to see, like to make a preview of your proposal and then to submit it. So the rest is, so after the submission of the proposal, it is saved as submitted and can be reviewed in the entries folder. You can, of course, submit only one proposal under this call. And here we go to the information about what happens when you submit the proposal. You will receive an automated email with the proposal number. The number will be stored in the organization's profile entry section. And in case of administrative discrepancies or omissions, the media resilience team may request additional information. Applicants can respond by email or by comment, which will be visible to the applicant in the organization profile. And this is why we do ask you to check regularly the email that you registered with the registration of the organization and in the application form, and your EPSS profile on a regular basis, so not to miss any information or deadlines. And this is all on our side. Thank you very much for listening and for your patience. It was a longer presentation. We do ask you, please send your questions in the chat box. We will record them and we'll be responding to them in the next 10 days. And you can see the responses to all your individual questions. Good luck, and we expect to receive your proposals soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.